So, okay, you're all starting to get logged in. Let's go ahead and dive in. Thanks for joining us. Go ahead and keep putting your comments in the chat. If I missed you, I'm sorry. Welcome. Thanks for being on. I have a lot to cover, so I'm going to just kind of dive right into it. If you don't know who I am, just a quick introduction. My name is Lance Morgan, and you could probably tell from this picture why I am so passionate about this topic of college funding and helping my kids pay for college. These are actually not all of my kids. I have 4 daughters and then my son in the middle there. So my oldest 2 are married. That's how we do it out here in Utah. If you want to go to school for free, you just get married or have a baby. But anyway, my oldest 2 daughters are in college and they are married. And I have a total of 5 kids. And just a little bit of backstory about who I am and how I got to this point. I've been helping families with college funding for well over a decade now. And it all started when my 2 oldest were getting old enough to where I started to do a little bit of the math and figure out how much college was going to cost. And I'm not going to lie, may have had a little bit of a panic attack, maybe a few sleepless nights. Anyone relate? And a thumbs up if you can relate. But when I started to calculate the cost of college, I started to think, wow, okay, college is going to be a lot more expensive than I thought. And that began this rabbit hole of me diving in and figuring out exactly what I could do to reduce the cost of college. I was in the financial industry, a licensed fiduciary. I was teaching everyone how to use 529 accounts for college savings. I was helping businesses to set up 401ks. I did a lot of assets under management. So I was in the financial industry, but what I was doing was not good enough. And what I was teaching my clients with 529 accounts and everything, there was something that I felt like was missing. And I really started to search for a better solution. Now, if you have 529 accounts, please don't feel bad. You should feel, you should be proud of yourself for actually saving for your kids' college. I'm just going to show you a better way to kind of use that money and how to get more out of that money and a better way to save and pay for college. I ended up writing this book in about 2018 called The Retirement Scholarship Strategy. And it was an Amazon bestseller, and it was basically what I'm going to teach you on this webinar. So no need to go on to Amazon and purchase it. Plus, it doesn't really pay me much. So no, I'm not promoting that book. You don't need the book. I am going to teach you everything you need to know in this webinar. But I've been very, very passionate about this topic for a long time. And this topic is all about the retirement scholarship strategy. It's just a name that I made up that talks about how to pay for college and get money back in retirement. Okay, so who can benefit from this webinar? Well, any parent that is planning on helping their kids pay for college. Now, my wife was the oldest of 6 kids, and her parents could not afford to help any of the kids with college. And so that's fine. But this particular webinar may not be as helpful if you're not planning on helping your kids at all. We have other trainings that would be a little bit more applicable as far as like maximizing grant money and scholarship money and things like that. But this webinar is for parents who are planning on helping their kids pay for at least some of college. This is also designed for high-income families who make too much money to qualify for financial aid. And also any student. Now, as a father of 5 kids, I know that some kids are gifted academically and some kids are just gifted in other ways. And so this is not going to be dependent on getting a bunch of scholarship money or anything like that. Okay. And this is also for all of you who have younger kids. I know some of you said in the chat there that you have younger kids, and this is going to show you how to save and pay for their college someday. And then it's also for those of you who are high school students or even kids already in college. I can't remember who it was, but one of you said that you're working on helping to pay for graduate school, or maybe you are paying for your own graduate school. That's great. If you have any college left to pay for, this will apply to you. This is not about getting your kids accepted to their dream school. I'm not going to teach you how to get into Harvard or Stanford or anything like that. I'm also not going to go through the financial aid forms and show you how to fill them out. I'm not going to show you tips and tricks on how to get your kids to get a perfect score on the ACT or SAT. And I'm not going to talk about choosing the right college or major or anything like that. Although all of that is important, and we do cover that in some of our other trainings. And I highly recommend that you pay attention to all of that. This is all about the money. Okay, in this workshop, it's all about the money. Okay, so this is the third in our three-part series. This is step 3 in our three-part series. So if you've been on any of my other webinars or saw any of my other trainings, in secret number 1, we talk about how to maximize all that free money for even the high net worth families. So if you are still wondering if there's ways to increase your free money or increase financial aid or increase scholarship money, okay, then that is what we call secret number 1. Secret number 1 is where you reduce the sticker price of college. Then secret number 2 is all about some loan strategies. It's not just about reducing the college loan payments or the loan interest. It's about some of the government programs like public service loan forgiveness and some of the other programs that are out there when it comes to the financing of college. But we are now on step 3. This is the third and final secret in our three-part series of how to reduce the cost of college. And I'm not going to lie, this is my personal favorite, because I love this because, as you can tell from the pyramid, this is where all the big savings comes from. The biggest savings. So even if you can't get any free money, and even if you're planning on paying cash for college and you don't even need to borrow the money, this is going to help everyone. That's why I love this topic so much. We can help families save thousands off the cost of attendance through what we call financial positioning to maximize all that free money. We can also help families to save tens of thousands off college loans and off the financing of college. But this topic is all about saving hundreds of thousands off what we call the opportunity cost, so that you can help your kids pay for literally any school of their dreams without having a negative impact on your retirement. I know that's a tall order, but we're going to dive into that in this topic. This is what I call the retirement scholarship strategy, the biggest savings of all, because you're going to be able to save hundreds of thousands off the opportunity cost. It also works for any school. If you've been on any other trainings, you know that the secret to maximizing a lot of the free money is finding the right school that is going to give your family the most money. But what if your kids want to go to a specific school that's not going to give you a lot of money? Or what if they want to go overseas? Or what if they want to just go into the trades and go into a trade school or a community college? That's what I love about this topic. This retirement scholarship strategy applies to any school. It's also for any student, exceptionally gifted academically or gifted in other ways. You don't have to have that 4.0 student that gets a perfect score on the SAT. It's not based on that at all. It doesn't require scholarships or financial aid. Now, I'm not saying that that doesn't help. Obviously, if you can get free money, that is awesome, and we can help you to maximize that free money. But this is independent of that. Works for younger students. Some of you have young kids, and you're just looking at a college savings plan. Awesome. Some of you already have kids in college, and you've just got a few more years to figure out how to pay for it. Awesome. We can help all of you. Okay. And for those of you who have younger students, this is a strategy that you can use to pay for college. For those of you who have older students that are in college already or high school, this is going to show you a way to pay back the college loan. So we'll get into all that. We'll show you some of these things. Okay. All right. Now, I also want this to be interactive. I want to personalize this information with your own specific numbers. So look in the chat. I'm going to post it in the chat again. There also is this offer tab. If you look at that offer tab, you should be able to just click on that button. But I am going to put in the chat again. Let's see here. Where's my chat? Here's my chat. Okay. Boom. Tell me if you can see that in the chat. Click on that link. It's calculator.collegecostsecrets.com. It should be under the offer tab, or it should be under the chat there. Tell me if you can click on that. I also noticed a couple comments about our secret number 1 and 2. Just shoot me a message and I'll make sure I get you the links to those. But go ahead and let's see if you can go to calculator.collegecostsecrets.com. Let me know, give me a thumbs up if you are able to go there and log in. It is going to look like this. Okay, so you're going to log in, and once you get logged in, the first screen is going to look like this. So I'm going to just give me a thumbs up when you are looking at this screen right here. Now, some of you are on your phone and you might not be able to do this, so just follow along. But if you are on a computer, or maybe you've got a couple windows open, or you've got dual monitors or something cool like that, then try to pull this up in a separate window and give me a thumbs up if you've got this pulled up and you're ready to go. Okay, all right. Oh, thank you. Perfect. Looks like, all right. Everybody else? Good. All right. Looks like we're good to go. All right. And all right. Perfect. Okay. So first off, this screen is pretty straightforward. Put in the number of kids that you have. Okay. How many kids do you have? I'm just going to stick to a simple example, but you can put as many kids as you want. Now, college inflation rate, I know it sounds crazy, but it's been about 5%. I'm just going to leave it there. You can change it if you want to change it. Click on next. Now, depending on how many kids you have, you're going to have multiple students here. You can put in their age, years until college, expected years in college, and the current cost of college. Now, if you don't know what the current cost of college is, then just guess for now. So a state school is going to be around $30,000, maybe $25,000 on the low end, but really I would say about $30,000 in today's dollars for a state school. So I've got my senior, I'm just looking at a senior in high school going to a state school. If you're looking at out-of-state schools, you'll probably be in that $40,000-$45,000 range. And if you're looking at Ivy League, top-tier private schools, you could be at $100,000 a year nowadays. It's crazy. All right. Then go ahead and put that in. Okay. Okay. And then we are going to, oh yes, and this is per year. This is the cost per year. Okay. Then what it's going to do is when you click on next, it's going to show you the inflation cost. All right, so everyone take a deep breath. If you have lots of kids and if they're going out of state or private schools, okay, you can click on multiple kids here. You've got multiple kids up at the top, and these are your numbers with inflation. Now, you could go in and you could say, oh, I want my kids to be able to pay for some of it, but don't do that at this point. Let's just, for simplicity's sake and for time's sake, let's just leave it like this for now. You can come back and play with it later, okay? Now, you're going to click on next, and it's going to give you a breakdown of all your kids. So if you have multiple kids, this is where you're going to get the total cost of attendance. Okay, total cost of attendance. This is what we call the sticker price. And if you're having sticker shock at the sticker price, then again, book a call with us and we'll help you to reduce that cost of college. But for those of you who have younger kids and you're just doing some planning, or you have kids that are already in college and you already know what the numbers are, or maybe you have seniors in high school and you already know what the cost is going to be, this is going to give you the cost of attendance. Now, anyone surprised with those numbers? All right. Anyone surprised? Anyone have their numbers a little higher than you thought? All right. Let's see here. Yes. Okay. All right. We've got a little bit of sticker shock going on. Okay. All right. Now, let's see here. Over here. Okay. Perfect. Okay. All right. So this is good to see the 4 years total. Awesome. Perfect. Yes. This is cool. This is a cool little tour, right? All right. Now, click on next. If you are not going to be able to pay cash for college, if you do not have enough money saved for college, you're going to have to borrow it. Okay? So instead of $135,000 for a 4-year degree for one kid to go to a local state school, instead of $135,000, we are looking at $223,000 by the time we pay back all the loans. Now, you'll notice that we are deferring the payments while they are in school. That's because you can defer loan payments while the kids are in school. I'm not saying you should or shouldn't at this point in time. I'm just showing you what it would look like if you just waited until the kids graduated, and then after graduation, so in year 5, or in other words, 6 months after graduation, is when you're going to have to start paying back those college loans. Now, if you are looking at this, okay, if you are looking at this and panicking a little bit, then you can always click the previous button, and you can maybe, change the interest rate on the loans a little bit. Maybe you want to use some home equity to get a lower rate, or maybe you want to shop around for some private loans. Now, if you are looking at federal loans are 9% right now. But of course, interest rates going to fluctuate, and they could come down. So I'm using 7 as maybe like an average over the next 4 years, assuming interest rates are going to come down. Now, you could also throw in 20 years if you need a little bit more time, and that's going to make that maybe a little bit more affordable. If you can't afford the $20,000, a year, you can spread it out a little bit longer. Okay. Now, I'm going to go back here and just put in the 10. I'm going to go back to the 10 here. All right. Okay. Now, there is my 223,000. Now, can anyone guess what the third cost of college is? Now, what's the first cost of college? The first cost of college is what we call the cost of attendance. That's what you're going to pay if you were to pay out of your pocket, if you were to pay out of your savings or out of your cash flow. The cost of attendance is the first cost. The second cost is the financing cost, the cost to finance college. Can anyone guess what the third cost is? Anyone? Anyone? Can anyone guess what the third cost of college is? Well, go ahead and put it in the chat if you want to take a guess. The third cost is what we call, at least it says books and boarding. Oh, so good. All right, we have a couple winners in there. All right, the third cost is called the opportunity cost. What in the world is opportunity cost? Well, opportunity cost is the cost of paying for college instead of saving for your retirement. Okay? It's the opportunity cost on your retirement. So, for example, let's say that I think I could earn 6% on my retirement savings. And I have 25 years left for retirement, let's say. Or let's just say I've got 20 years left. Let's just keep it simple. Okay? I've got 20 years left until retirement. Well, when I click on next, here's my total cost right here, $135,000. Here's my cost for the 4 years. But the opportunity cost is what if instead of paying $31,000 for college, what if I invested that for my retirement at 6% interest? I could have earned $1,800 of interest, giving me a total of $33,000 for my retirement. And what if the next year, instead of paying for college, I invested that money for retirement with a little compounding interest here? Okay. So in other words, the interest, or I should say the missed interest, is the cost of paying cash for college. So some of you who are going to take your 529 money or your college savings money and you're going to spend it on college, you're thinking, hey, this is good. I don't have to pay any interest on loans. But if you take money out of your savings and you pay cash for college, then this is the opportunity cost. So in other words, to pay $135,000 for college, it's going to cost you $375,000 out of your retirement over the next 19 years. Let me bump that up just because I've got a 0 year in there. There we go. Over 20 years, it's going to cost me just shy of $400,000 in my retirement. Okay. All right. Now, what if I were to pay back my loans? Maybe I can't pay cash for college. Maybe I'm just planning on making those loan payments. Well, instead of paying $22,000 a year on a loan payment, what if I could have invested that $22,000 a year for 10 years for my retirement at 6%? That interest is going to be the missed interest, okay? And that is going to cost me a little over $440,000 in my retirement. All right, anybody else playing with their numbers here? Anybody a little shocked about these numbers? Has anybody ever thought about the opportunity cost before? And how many of you, raise your hand and give me a thumbs up, how many of you would like to cut the opportunity cost by even hundreds of thousands of dollars, depending on your numbers? All right. If so, well, then buckle up, because that's what we're going to cover in this workshop. We are going to cover, okay, we are going to cover, all right, hey, if you don't know, you can use any numbers you want. You don't have to use 6%. If your retirement savings is earning 10%, put in 10%. If your retirement savings is only earning 4%, put in 4%. Whatever the number is, that's your cost. These are your numbers, not my numbers. These are your numbers. Okay? All right. Here's the secret. How you pay for college is 10 times more important than how much you pay. Now, I'm not saying it's not important to reduce the cost of college. It's very important to reduce the cost of college, because if you could get $10,000 in free money for college, you're going to have to borrow less. You're going to borrow less, which means the financing cost is less, and the opportunity cost would be less. But how you pay for college is still more important. Okay? So just a quick poll. I'm just curious. How many of you are planning on taking out some loans to pay for college? I'm just going to do a little poll here. Let's share a poll. See and make sure you're sticking with love. Boom. All right. Go ahead and vote on our little poll. It should pop up. Up at the top of your screen, you should see a little poll tab. Okay. How many of you are planning on taking out at least some money in loans to pay for college? All right, and let's go ahead and share those poll results. Okay, and we're just roughly 70-30, roughly. Okay, so most of you are going to have to take out some loans, but here's the secret: everyone finances college. Now, about 30 of you are saying, or about 30% of you are saying, what do you mean I'm not going to finance college? I am going to pay cash for college. But guess what? Okay, you are either going to pay interest on loans, or you're going to give up the interest that you could have earned by paying cash. There is the cost of college, or the cost to finance college, but then there is the opportunity cost of paying for college. You're either going to pay interest on loans, or you're going to give up interest that you could have earned by paying cash. And that is what we're going to talk about with the retirement scholarship strategy. I am going to show you a strategy to significantly minimize the cost of college by giving you money back in retirement. Free money in retirement by how you pay for college. That's why we call it the retirement scholarship strategy, because you're getting free money back in retirement. Okay? Now, here's the problem with traditional college savings plans. Your kids may decide to go to a non-qualified form of education. Maybe they want to go into the trades. Maybe they want to get some IT certification, or maybe they want to get some marketing certification, or maybe you have a financial emergency or a financial opportunity and you need the money, but it's tied up in this account that you can't get to without a penalty. Also, we cover this more on the secret number 1 training, but in secret number 1, we talk about reducing your SAI number. In other words, how to maximize the financial aid. Believe it or not, if you have college savings in a 529 account or a covered out account or a Florida prepaid tuition plan, that is going to hurt your chances of getting free money from the schools. There's also something that we cover in secret number 2 when we talk about loan strategies. There's public service loan forgiveness. There's income-driven repayment plans that you may also want to take advantage of, which is another reason why you don't want to use your typical 529 money to just pay cash for college. But here's the number 1 reason. The number 1 reason why I recommend not using 529 accounts to pay for college is because it interrupts the compounding interest. There's the opportunity cost. Now, again, I'm not saying it's bad if you have a 529 account. I'll talk about what to do. I know there's going to be some questions on what do I do if I have a 529 account. I will talk about that later. But again, hats off to you if you have a 529 account for saving for your kids' college. You should be, you should be commended for saving for your kids' college. But I'm going to show you a better way to use that money. Now, this is the old way. You save for college, and then you spend the money on college, and it's gone. That's it. You save the money, and then you spend it. You're interrupting the compounding interest. It's like selling the goose that's laying the golden eggs. This right here, just to put some numbers to it, this right here is your opportunity cost right here. Okay? Whether you pay cash for college or whether you borrow the money and pay it back. This is the number, and all of your numbers are different. Everybody's numbers are different. But this is the cost of paying cash. That's the opportunity cost. So introducing a new way to save and pay for college. And by the way, I'm going to just tell you right now that you've got to be open-minded because this is going to go against everything that you've ever been taught about paying for college. Everyone's telling you to get a 529 account. Everyone's telling you to save and then just spend it. I'll bet you if you have a financial advisor and you ask your financial advisor, they're going to just tell you to take your money and pay cash for college. Why? Because that's what I told everybody. Remember, I was a licensed fiduciary. I was selling 529 accounts for about 8 years before I learned this strategy that I'm going to teach you. And I was teaching all of my clients to save for their kids' college and spend it on college. That's what I was doing for my own kids until I learned a better strategy called the retirement scholarship strategy. I said any student to any school of their choice and get money back in retirement without scholarships or financial aid, even if you have a high school or college student and no money saved. Okay? Now, a little backstory. I first learned about this strategy when I went to a training. Like I said, I was in the financial industry. I was a licensed fiduciary, and I went to a lot of trainings. And every training that I ever went to was always talking about rate of return. Which products were giving the best rate of return? That was always the topic. Was which product? What's the latest and greatest product or strategy to give the best rate of return? Well, one day I was in this training by a guy named Don Blanton. And Don Blanton was teaching people about financial strategies. He says it's more about the golf swing than it is about the golf club. It's not so much about the products as it is about the strategy or the technique. So what I'm about to share with you is not a product, it's a strategy. Now, Don created this program. This program is called Circle of Wealth, and I spent a year studying with Don Blanton, and I learned all sorts of training or the concept that literally changed my life and how I thought about money in general. A strategy designed to help develop or improve one's financial position by avoiding or minimizing unnecessary wealth transfers. Basically, a wealth transfer is when you're making a financial mistake unknowingly or unnecessarily, meaning you might pay more for college than you need to pay for college because you don't know about all the strategies available. You might pay more on taxes than you should pay on taxes because you don't know ways to minimize your taxes. So you're making a mistake financially, unknowingly, and unnecessarily. Okay? Now, this strategy is all about accumulating an increasing pool of capital, providing access, control, and uninterrupted compounding interest. This is going to be the secret of our training today. And it's all about using your money as collateral. What does collateral mean? Well, when you get a home mortgage, the mortgage is secured by the house. That means that your house is being used as collateral. If you get a car loan, your car is being secured, the loan is being secured by the car. In other words, the car is being used as collateral. Did you know that you could also use your savings as collateral to borrow money? Well, before you make any purchase like college, you must consider the cost, and we've already talked about this, the opportunity cost. Okay, so let me show you some actual numbers. Let's just say that we have $100,000 that we're going to pay for college. Let's just say that that money could have earned 6%. Okay? And let's just look at a 20-year window. So basically, the interest that we're going to not earn is $231,000. So my final balance would have been $331,000 over 20 years. Now, I know that you don't pay college in 1 year. I know that you pay for college over 4 years or 8 years or whatever. But I'm just showing you an example. This is just trying to teach you a concept, okay? Now, what if we borrow the $100,000? Are there any opportunity costs when we borrow the money? Yes. We've got interest that we have to pay. So if we pay interest to a bank or to the government for loans, the interest is not going to earn any interest for our retirement. If I have to pay extra taxes that I didn't need to, well then those taxes are not going to grow from my retirement. So there's opportunity cost on the interest that I pay. What else do I have? Well, I have a payment, right? If I have a monthly payment, then I've got a payment that is not being saved for my retirement. So I've got an opportunity cost on the payment itself. So in other words, I've got an interest expense. There's 4 of them. I've got an interest expense. I've got an opportunity cost on the interest. I've got a loan payment, and I've got an opportunity cost on the loan payment. And if I'm borrowing the money at 6, and if I could have earned 6, then guess what? The total cost of ownership, or in other words, the total cost to borrow $100,000 is the exact same as paying cash. Think about that for a minute. How many of you are planning on paying cash for college thinking that it's going to be cheaper than borrowing the money? Well, guess what? If you pay cash for college, then your money is no longer going to be earning interest. If you borrow the money for college, then you're going to have to pay interest. It's actually the same cost to borrow the money as it is to pay cash. But what if we can actually borrow the money for less than we can earn on our savings? Now, you might not know where you can borrow money for less than what you can earn on your savings, but let's just say you could. And of course, I'm going to show you a place. But let's just say you could. If you could borrow money for less interest than you can earn on your savings, believe it or not, it would be cheaper to borrow the money. Now, I don't know about you, but when I first heard this, my brain was just like, like this goes against everything that I had ever been taught and everything that I had ever taught my clients. Okay? But let's break this down. There are 3 ways to pay for something. There's the debtor. The debtor just makes payments to the lender at the highest market rate. Okay? The saver, they make payments to themselves to build their savings account back up. Because if the saver spends their savings, then they got to pay themselves back. So they have the money for the future, right? Now, what does the wealth creator do? Well, the wealth creator saves and uses OPM. Anyone know what OPM is? Put it in the chat if you know what OPM is. Okay? The wealth creator saves and uses other people's money to maximize efficiency. Makes payments to a chosen lender, allowing their own money to earn uninterrupted compounding interest, maximizing the benefits of their plan. Now, so here's just a quick visual. If you borrow the money, you're going to start at 0, then you're going to go below 0, and you're going to keep paying back loans, and you're going to borrow more money, you're going to borrow more money, you're going to start at 0, and you're going to end at 0. If you are a saver, you're going to save and then spend, save and then spend, save and then spend. You're going to start at 0, and you're going to end at 0. Okay? So, what's this strategy? Okay? How do we pay for college using the retirement scholarship strategy and get money back in retirement? It takes 3 components. You need uninterrupted compounding interest. If you have some savings, let it keep growing, uninterrupted. If you don't have any savings and you are going to try to pay for college out of your pocket, save it and let it grow the rest of your life. And then how do you pay for college? We find loans at a lower rate using our money as collateral. Our money as collateral. And then if we didn't have to make any loan payments, which I know you're probably wondering, where in the world can you borrow money that you don't have to make any loan payments? But if we could borrow money without any loan payments at a lower interest rate, then our money grows at 6. Let's say we borrow the money at 5. We just let the 2 run, and all of this money can be used in your retirement. Okay? Now, this concept of not having a loan payment is extremely confusing. So I want to talk about how cool this is. So check this out. A minute ago, we talked about how if we're going to get the same rate on our savings as we're going to get on the money that we borrow, then it's going to cost us the same. We talked about that a minute ago. Okay? Now, we also said that if we could borrow money at a lower rate, then it was going to give us a little bit of a savings, right? Now, what if we didn't make any loan payments on those loans? There's a few ways to borrow money without loan payments. We're going to talk about it. But what if we could borrow money and let those loans just grow? Okay? Then guess what? It's still going to cost us the same because we've got that much more interest. If we don't make any payments, then we've got lots of extra interest. And again, What if we could get a better interest rate, but without any loan payments? Now, look at the savings start to grow. Do you see the difference in the savings versus the money that you borrow? Believe it or not, if you can borrow money without making any payments, then there's no opportunity cost on the payment. There's only the opportunity cost on the interest. And finally, instead of making a payment to a loan, what if we put that payment towards our savings? Now, look at the difference between your savings and your loan balance. Now, at this point, you're probably wondering, how in the world do we actually do this? Well, it's like two cars going across the country. One car is going 60 miles an hour, the other car is going 50 miles an hour. By the time they go from LA to New York, there's going to be a huge difference between those two cars, and your money works the same way. Also, if you are anti-debt, okay, guess what? Good news. You're not in debt. Even though you're using other people's money, you are not in debt. Even though you're using other people's money, you are not in debt. Why? Because your money is being used as collateral, meaning that you can pay off your loans anytime you want. All right, now this is a completely different way of thinking. This changes how we normally think about paying for college. In fact, there was this is kind of how the billionaires think about money, because there was this article that came out a long time ago and everybody reposted it. And they talked about all these billionaires that were not paying their fair share in taxes. Okay? Because the wealth, even though Jeff Bezos' wealth goes up $99 billion, he doesn't pay more than $973 million in taxes. Why? Because their wealth is from the skyrocketing value of their assets. What's the other way of saying that? Another way of saying that is uninterrupted compounding interest. Those gains are not defined by U.S. laws as taxable income unless and until the billionaires sell. So let me just make sure you're following me here. Go ahead and put it in the chat. Okay? Put it in the chat. Do you think that Jeff Bezos would sell his Amazon stock to buy a beach house on the beach? Yes or no? Do you think Jeff Bezos would sell his Amazon stock, giving up the interest in the compounding and paying the taxes? Or do you think he would borrow the money? What do you think? No? All right. Everyone says, no, he's not going to sell stock. He's going to borrow. All right, exactly. Okay, so how do these mega billionaires pay their mega bills while opting for dollar salaries and hanging on to their stock? Well, according to the public documents and experts, the answer for some is borrowing money, lots of it. Now, again, if you're anti-debt, I get it. I know exactly how you feel. When I first heard about this, I'm like, this just doesn't make any sense, because we've always been taught to save and then spend, save cash, pay cash for everything, right? But again, if you could borrow the money for less interest than what you could earn on your savings, it's actually better to borrow. Okay? So again, we need three components. Uninterrupted compounding interest, just like that Amazon stock. Okay? We need loans at a lower rate than what we're earning. I'm sure Jeff Bezos thinks that he could get a mortgage for less than what he's earning on his Amazon stock, right? But then here's the unique one. This is where it gets a little interesting. We need optional loan payments so that we don't have that opportunity cost on the loan payment, and we get that really big spread between these two, okay? So how do we do this? Can we do this with a 529 account? Yes or no? Put it in the chat. Can we do this with a 529 account? Can we use our 529 account as collateral and borrow against it. Can you call up whoever has your 529 account and say, hey, I want to use my 529 account as collateral and get a loan? Anyone? No. No, you can't. You have to spend that money. That money is designed to be spent. Okay? How about the bank? Does anyone know of a bank in your local area that is offering a savings account with higher interest than loans? Anyone? Anyone know anyone in the bank? Anyone have a bank? Because if you do, I would love to know. Okay? No, no one? And Julia, okay, no? All right. Nope. Not going to happen, is it? How about a 401k loan? Now, is it possible that you could maybe have your 401k grow? Well, here's the problem. The reason why it doesn't work is because you're borrowing your own money. You're not really borrowing money at all. You're basically withdrawing money. You're withdrawing money from your 401k. Your employer is not giving you a loan. Your employer is not giving you a loan and letting your 401k keep growing. You are literally withdrawing money out of your 401k. They're just calling it a loan so you don't have to pay all the taxes and penalties. Okay? How about a margin loan? Anyone in here know what a margin loan is? A margin loan is where you use your stocks as collateral to get a loan from somebody like Fidelity. Well, it's possible to be able to get loans at a lower rate. Typically not, but it's possible, okay? But they're going to want a payment. They're going to want a payment. And if the stock market crashes, they're going to want you to sell your stocks and pay off all the loans. And you can usually only borrow up to about 50%. How about real estate? Does anyone know of a mortgage company that will give you a loan without a payment? Okay. Any mortgage people in here? There is one exception to this, and that is a reverse mortgage. If you're old enough to get a reverse mortgage, which most of us are not old enough to get a reverse mortgage, but if you're old enough to get a reverse mortgage, that would work. Okay. How about whole life insurance? What do you think? Anyone have whole life insurance? Anyone think the whole life insurance would work for this? Go ahead and put it in the chat. Here's the problem. Your whole life insurance that has cash value can actually compound interest uninterrupted. Okay? But your whole life insurance company works like a bank. You're usually going to earn 4 to 5% on a whole life policy, typically. And the loans are going to cost around 6 to 8. It's a lot like a bank. A whole life company works a lot like a bank. But here's what's unique. What's unique is that insurance companies will let you use your cash value as collateral, and they will give you a loan. And you don't have to make a payment. But if your whole life is growing like this and your loan is growing like this, you're gonna want to make a payment. You're not going to be required to make a payment, but you're going to want to make a payment. Okay? So whole life is unique because there's no loan payments. Now, here's the new kid on the block. And I remember when I first learned about this, I was very much anti-life insurance when I was selling a lot of stocks and assets under management. When I was a fiduciary, my goal was just put everybody's money in the market. And then I read this book called Tax-Free Retirement by Patrick Kelly. It really changed my thinking about how wealthy people are using life insurance, completely different than I had ever heard before. And believe it or not, you can actually earn, I've got clients earning 6 to 8% in these IULs, they're called, an Index Universal Life. And you can get loans at 5% without loan payments. Now, this is a little bit unique. But here's how this works. You have your cash value which is kind of, if you're not familiar with this kind of life insurance, this is like an insurance company's savings account. Okay? And you're going to borrow money from the insurance company in an interest-only loan, and they're going to use your money as collateral. They're going to put a lien on your money. Then they're not going to require you to make any payments. Non-structured loan payments means they don't require you to make a payment at all. You don't have to make a payment at all. And then when you die, they'll just take what you owe them and your family will get what's left. Okay, now, I know what you're thinking. What about the high fees? That's what I thought, right? What about all the high fees? Well, in this book by Tony Robbins, he talks about this concept about how these wealthy people, in chapter 5, talks about how the wealthy are using life insurance differently to maximize a lot of tax savings. But he also talks about how it's not even the billionaires that are buying the most life insurance. It's actually the large corporations and the banks. Did you know Wells Fargo had $18 billion in life insurance cash value back in 2014? Now, again, how are they doing it differently? Well, what are they doing to keep those fees low? Here's the secret. Low insurance, high cash value. This is the secret, okay? If you buy normal life insurance for the life insurance, if you are sold an insurance policy with lots of life insurance, it might come with some cash value, but most of your money is probably going towards the insurance, which means you're paying maximum fees and commissions. But what the wealthy and the banks and the large corporations are doing is the opposite. They are buying maximum cash value, as much as the IRS will let them, with minimum insurance. Now, why in the world do you think that nobody ever hears about this? Because it doesn't pay very much in commissions. That's why. Insurance agents get paid based on the insurance that you buy. Okay? There's not fees in most of these plans. There's not fees on the cash value. So you could have lots of cash value with no fees associated with, you could have like $1 million in cash value and pay like 0.1% in fees. Now, if you go to bankdirector.com, you can learn how the banks are doing it. There's a video called What is Bank-Owned Life Insurance? And basically it explains how life insurance, or how the banks are using this life insurance differently. High cash value, low insurance. The cost is low compared to other insurance products. For example, this IUL compared to a Roth IRA or a 529 or an IRA or 401k or a brokerage account, look at how much cheaper it is from ages 50 to ages 95. Let's put some dollars to it. Based on a 1% fee, look at how much cheaper the IUL could be over those years. Over 40 years or 45 years. Okay? It could be that much cheaper. Now, what if you do it the wrong way? What if you do it the wrong way? Is there any reason why most financial advisors are telling you not to buy life insurance? Any reasons why Susie Orman is telling you, or Dave Ramsey's telling you not to buy life insurance? This is how it's done most of the time. That's the problem. Okay? So I'm just curious. We're running out of time. I'm going to try to speed things up a little bit, but just put it in the chat if you currently have life insurance, just out of curiosity. Okay? All right, now I'm going to show you some case studies. Let's put some numbers to this. Let's start with a second grade student. Now I know most of you have high school students or maybe even college students, but I want to show you a second grade student just to illustrate this concept really quick. Okay? All right, so let's go over here. One student, and again, you should have your numbers in front of you. Everybody's numbers are different. I'm going to show you a couple case studies. but you're going to have your own numbers. Okay, so I've got one student with 5% inflation with, I'm going to say 11. Let's see here. Hold on. I'm going to do this one. Should be hold on. Let's go back over here. Let's just reset this. Let's just reset this one. And let's say that we've got 11 years. They're going to go to college in 11 years. Right? Let's just say they are 6. Okay? They're going to go to college in 11 years to a state school that costs about $30,000 in today's dollars. They're going to be in college for 4 years. The total cost in the future, because of inflation, is going to be $51,000 for the first year, $53,000, $56,000, $59,000. And let's just say that this family wants to save enough money to be able to pay cash for college using life insurance loans. Watch this. Ready? All right. Check this out. It's over here. Boom. Okay. So this family is going to contribute $18,000 a year at a 6% return. Let's just say they're going to earn 6%. Now, these fees are going to be high in the beginning and low in the end. Why? Because we're going to start with a lot of life insurance, and then we're going to minimize it to keep the fees low. Okay? Now, this is where you need to ask lots of questions if you have questions, because then we're going to dive into this. We're going to get into some of these questions in a minute, okay? So $18,000 minus the expenses plus a little interest, our account is going to start out in the negative. But that's okay, because we are going to have what? Uninterrupted compounding interest. Watch this. This account is going to grow the rest of your life. See that? Your interest is going to grow the rest of your life. Now, when it comes to paying for college, let's go over here to my numbers. I need $51,000 for the first year of college. Right? So guess what? I borrow $51,000 from the life insurance to pay for college. Now, I might want to use federal loans because of other strategic reasons that we cover in secret number 2. But let's just say I want to borrow the money from the life insurance at a guaranteed 5% interest rate. How would you guys like to be guaranteed to be able to get a loan at 5% interest in the future, even 11 years from now? Okay? All right, now, when I borrow this money from the insurance company, does it reduce my account balance? Yes or no? Put it in the chat. Okay. Now, I want to answer, put it in the chat. Does it reduce my money? No. Okay, now, Karen says, why would this be better than just saving $180,000 in the market and then using the stocks as collateral for a loan? That's called a margin loan. That's called a margin loan. And you're going to only be able to borrow half, and you're going to be forced to make a payment. And if the stock market drops, you're going to have to pay off the loan with your stocks. So remember, we just looked at that a minute ago. The margin loan is not as good. Okay, now, check this out. When I'm borrowing all this money from the insurance company, look at what happens to my money. It keeps growing. I'm not interrupting any of the compounding interest. Does that make sense? Now I've got a separate loan. So my loan is going to grow at 5% interest. And then the next year, I've got to take out $53,000 for the sophomore year. So I take a loan out in the second year. And then my interest grows. Now, here's the thing. If I don't make any payments, what's happening to my loan balance if I don't make any payments? Okay. Any questions so far? My loan balance is getting bigger. My loan balance is getting bigger, but so is my account value. Remember, it's like the two cars. It's like the two cars going across the country. One car is going 80 miles an hour or 60 miles an hour. One car is going 50 miles an hour. We get this spread between the two cars. Now, let's come down here and look at all this money that we have in retirement. All this money that we have in retirement. That's our retirement scholarship money. That's the money that we're getting back in retirement. That's the free money that we're getting back. Okay? And heaven forbid, if something happens to us, we also have the life insurance that's going to pay our family so that we can still pay for college. So even if you die, you can still pay for college. Okay? Now, let's scroll down here and talk about what happens when you're 95 years old and you finally pass away. Well, you saved $180,000. Your money grew uninterrupted your entire life. Okay? Your money grew uninterrupted your entire life. You borrowed $221,000 for college. Where did that come from? Right here. Okay? You borrowed $225,000 or $221,000 to pay for college, and you never paid those loans back. You never made any loan payments. So now you have a balance of $1.4 million when you die. So let me ask you this. Where is the insurance company going to get that $1.4 million that you owe them when you die? Anyone take yes? Okay, now, for those of you who have seniors in high school, hang on just a minute. We're going to talk about seniors in high school next. Okay? So even if you don't have one of these plans, and you have a senior in high school, I'm going to show you what to do. Now, let me ask you this. What happens when you die? Where is the insurance company going to get that money? Okay? Anyone guess? Out of the account value, right? Out of the account value, which is going to give you $1.3 million left over, plus a little bit of insurance for a total payout to your family of $1.1 million. So you saved $180,000 into this college plan, you paid for college, and you leave your family at $1.1 million. Now, you don't need to leave your family $1.1 million. You could use this money in retirement. We can borrow this money to supplement our retirement income. You could use that to go and visit grandkids. You could borrow an estimated $11,000 a year tax-free. Income tax-free. This is how the wealthy are retiring tax-free. They're using this for retirement and borrowing the money in retirement. So you don't have to just wait and leave it to your family. You can spend this money while you're alive. Or you can take this money and spend what's left anytime you want. Or you can wait until you die and the loan just gets paid off out of your account and you leave the rest to the family. All right, questions. All right. What happens if the policy changes when you turn 71? What do you mean by change? Julia, you say, what happens if the policy changes when you turn 71 and the payout is less when you die? I'm not quite sure exactly what you're asking there. So if we go back up here to age 71, you know, you have $575,000. You owe 527. You have 48,000 left over, and that would be your final payout. Okay. Rita says, is this doable if your child has 2 more years of college and you already have in your 50s? Absolutely. Absolutely, Rita. We just need to plug your numbers in. Okay, so everybody should have their own numbers over here in their calculator. Okay, and I'm going to show you the senior. I'm going to show you the senior next. And says, I think I should have a separate term life insurance for actual death benefit. Absolutely. There's nothing wrong with having term insurance for the death benefit. This isn't enough. 200, that's not enough life insurance. You should definitely have some more life insurance for sure. And term insurance is great for the insurance part. Okay. All right, the payout goes down at that age. Okay, the payout is up to you. Like, this is just the payout that you can borrow. Okay, so you can borrow the money at any age for any amount. Okay, I think there's some other schools. All right, let's move on. I think there's a lot of questions in here about the seniors. Let's move on to a senior example. Okay, so let's look at the senior example. If I have a senior with 1 year until college and 4 years in college at a price of $30,000 a year, it's $135,000, but 70% of you said that you were going to need to borrow the money because maybe you didn't have enough saved, because maybe college was more expensive than you thought it would be. So let's say that we borrow this $135,000, and 6 months after graduation, we're going to have to start making a loan payment. So this is my freshman year of college. This is my sophomore year of college. This is my junior year. This is my senior year. And then 6 months after graduation from college, we're going to need to start making these loan payments. Now, your numbers are all going to be different, right? Your numbers are all going to be different. This is one student that's a senior in high school going to a state school. You might have multiple kids. You might have out-of-state costs. You might have, private school costs, whatever the case may be, okay? So this is one student that's $223,000. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the life insurance loans to pay back these college loan payments, and we're going to start saving that money now. We're not going to wait. We're going to start saving about $21,000 a year for 10 years so that we can borrow that $22,000 a year to pay back those college loans with. So again, remember, we can either use this to pay for college or we can use this to pay back college loans. So if you have a college student with only 3 years left, then we're going to do the same thing as this one, except for your loans are just going to start a year earlier. Okay? You're going to defer the loan payments, the college loan payments. You're going to defer the college loan payments. And then once the student graduates and we have to start making these loan payments, we're going to borrow that money from the insurance company, and our money is going to continue to compound interest. All right? Okay. Let me just double check here. So what type of policy do we need? Okay, so again, this is called an indexed universal life insurance policy, but it's how it's designed. It's how it's designed that makes this important. Okay. Now, if you want to see your own numbers, I know we're not quite done yet, but for those of you that have to jump off, if you want to see your own numbers, let me put a link in here to book a free call, and we'll run your numbers for you. Okay, so ID offer, boom, share an offer. All right. there should be a link. Let me also copy it into the chat there. I'm just going to copy this booking link real quick here. Well, actually, hold on. Let's see here. All right. Call this link here. All right. In the chat. Boom. Okay. All right. I just put a link in the chat. If you want to run your own numbers, if you want us to run your numbers for you, then just click on that link and book a call real quick. Okay. And we'll run your numbers for you. All right. But real quick, going back to this. Okay. You're going to borrow the money from the insurance company to pay back college loans. Then you're never going to make a payment. You can if you want to. I'm not saying you don't have to or that you can't. You can pay off these loans if you want to pay off these loans, or you just wait until you die and the loan balance gets paid off out of the account balance. And then your family gets what's left over. Okay? All right, Kevin says, what is the source of the loans that don't require payments while my kid is in school? Kevin, most of the college loans do not require a payment while your kids are in school. The federal loans, the Parent Plus loans, the Stafford loans, most private loans do not require a payment while the kids are in school. Okay? Ann says, link is not working. And let me try another one. Hold on. Sometimes that one's a little weird. Let me just try one more real quick. Boom. All right, and there's also an offer tab. Yes, there's an offer button. But Ann, do me a favor and click on that link I just put in the chat. Make sure that one is working. Also, there's another comment saying the link wasn't working. All right, there's a little bit longer link I just put in the chat there. Hopefully that one works. And this is working. Okay, great. Perfect. That one should be working. Okay, so what are the expenses involved with the IUL? Is a question. Let's come up here. And let's look right here. The expenses start out high and then they go low. They start out high and then they go low. It averages to about 1% over 20 years and about 0.5% over 30 years. It's actually less than other accounts. Okay. Let's see here. Okay. Perfect. Jennifer says don't see the link. It should be in the chat a couple of times there, Jennifer. Let me know if you can't find it. It should be in the chat there. Okay. All right. Other questions. I know there were a lot of questions coming in earlier there that I missed. I hope I've answered most of your questions as you've been putting those in. All right. I'm going to keep going, and then we're going to come back to this. All right. Perfect. Okay. So here's another visual here. Okay. Again. This account right here is this column right here, the account value. Okay, so the account value is the cash value savings account with the insurance company. That's this over here. Then we're going to take out these loans to pay for college at an interest-only loan, and they're going to use our money as collateral and give us a separate loan. That's this. This is my loan from the insurance company. Okay, just to kind of put some visuals to it. I'm going to come back to that later. All right, retirementscholarship.com/book a call if you want to book a link. There's also some links in the chat. Okay, and then, okay, real quick, what amount of life insurance to start with? So, Chris, as far as the amount of insurance, we're going to use this number first. So everyone has their own number. So everybody look at their calculator and look at step 6 of 8. On step 6 of 8, this is going to be your loan breakdown. Or step 5 or step 4. Okay? So either step 4 is going to give you a total cost of attendance, or step 6 is going to give you your loan breakdown. That is going to determine this right here. That's going to determine how much money we need to borrow from the insurance company and in what year. Maybe it's $22,000 a year. Maybe it's not until later. So your numbers are all going to be different. Okay? Your numbers are all going to be different. And that's going to determine this number. So somebody might say, well, I can't afford $18,000 a year. Those aren't your numbers. Hey, these aren't your numbers. You're going to have different numbers. Maybe you need to spread the payments out longer. Maybe you already have the money saved and you want to do it in less time. And then to answer your question, Chris, about the insurance, this is going to be the amount of insurance required by the IRS for this number over here. And I'll get into that in more detail when we talk and we're running your numbers. But we'll show you the minimum that you have to buy. Sarah says, where do you recommend we open up one of these accounts? We will show you the best insurance products in your area. So we are completely independent. We have access to all the insurance companies. So we will show you the best product with the best loans and the best rate of returns in your area. Okay? Can you invest a lump sum amount? Yes, you can. You can move some money into these accounts in a lump sum. It's a little bit, yes is the short answer. We can show you how to do that. Okay? Now, how can these insurance policies earn 6 to 8% without stock market losses? I know somebody earlier said, where can you get a 6% return? Well, guess what? There are products, there are indexed universal life insurance products on the market right now, okay, that will give you 80% of the S&P futures, which is very similar to the S&P 500. As you can tell with these graphs, it's basically the S&P 500. It just doesn't have an opening and a closing like the S&P 500 does. But you can literally get 80% of the S&P with no caps. For those of you who are familiar with life insurance, no caps and a 1% minimum bonus guaranteed. So the worst you can ever earn is 1%, and you can get 80% of the S&P without any cap on the upside. Since 2003, the average has been 11%. I'm showing you numbers at 6%. I'm not trying to embellish any of these numbers. I'm showing you a conservative 6%, but you can get 80% of the upside without any downside. Okay? Hold on, somebody wants the link again. Let me just put this link in here again. Sometimes the chat disappears. Sorry about that. Boom. All right, let me know. Let me know if that works. Okay. All right, now. Oh, sorry. My camera is on. Oh, my camera's in the way. The picture's in the way. Up at the top, it starts in 2003. The first number is 2003. Okay. Oh, the first number. Let's see here. I see what you're saying here. Let me move this over to. Let's see here. I got to do that. That's not going to work. Sorry. The first number is 22.64, 22.64, and then 8.35. All right. Okay, now, how in the world is that possible? Because even Warren Buffett says that his people can't outperform the S&P. So if Warren Buffett's people can't even outperform the S&P, then how can you get 80% of the S&P with no downside? Well, I know it sounds too good to be true because I thought that when I first heard about it. But here's how it works. They're going to put most of your money into this bond portfolio. There's mostly bonds, a little bit of stocks and some mortgages, but mostly bonds. And over time, if they buy like really long-term bonds, they're going to be earning around 5% over time. Okay? So then when you give them $1,000, for example, or $10,000 or $100,000 or whatever it is, they're going to put most of that into these bonds, getting around 5%, which is going to give you back your $1,000, and that's how they can guarantee you that you're not going to lose any money. Then they're going to take the interest basically on the money and do what we call options trading. Now, I don't have time to go into the details of options trading, but basically this is like a hedge fund or some advanced leveraging kind of investing where they could literally turn $50 into $100 by buying an option on something like the S&P 500 futures. And if that index goes up, you're going to make a lot of money on your $50, which is going to equal a 10% return. Now, when the markets are doing really well, then your options are doing really well. And that's how you can get over 20% returns on a good year. And on a bad year, you might lose that money, which means you're not going to earn any money. So you technically get a zero, but there's a lot of products that will give you a 1% bonus. So at least you get 1%. And then you want to look for loans that are contractually guaranteed that won't change. I know some insurance companies have loans that are variable loans, and the loans can go up to 15%. You do not want variable loans. You want loans that are locked in and won't change. For those of you who are starting now, you could buy a product like this and be guaranteed to be able to borrow the money in the future at 5%. Okay? Again, if you want us to run your numbers, go to retirementscholarship.com. Let me put that link in here again. Boom. You can click that link. Okay? Now, let's just recap some of the benefits. A competitive rate of return, over 6% average returns, doesn't negatively affect your SAI number. Now, again, I cover this in the secret number 1 training, but this is how you maximize the free money from the schools, is by not having a lot of money available. If we don't have enough money, or if we don't have a lot of money available, we get more free money. And life insurance is considered a retirement account, which doesn't negatively affect your financial aid eligibility. Low fees, if set up correctly, tax-free growth on the money, and tax-free access to the money. It's basically taxed like a 529 account or a Roth IRA because of the loans. No stock market losses, guaranteed loan approval. There's no credit check, there's no application. You're literally using your money as collateral, so there's no questions asked. You can borrow the money for anything. Fixed loans at 5%, not variable if you get the right product. High contribution limits, okay? Flexible contributions, and you have access to the money. And it can be used for more than college. That's why I said this works for any college and any student, because you can borrow money from your life insurance for anything, okay? Oops, go back here, okay? Paying for college, paying back college loans, weddings. I've got 2 daughters that are married. Guess how I paid for their weddings? Any major expense, okay? Taxes. My dad always used his life insurance to borrow to pay his taxes every year. And of course, retire, okay? I had the opportunity to meet with Kevin Harrington from the Shark Tank. His office actually reached out to me and said, hey, I love what you're doing to help families reduce the cost of college. I'd love to meet with you. And we had an interview and we did some marketing and some business together. And this is what Kevin Harrington had to say about these strategies.
Kevin Harrington here, original shark from Shark Tank. Leggetti teaches families how to pay for their children's college without sacrificing their retirement. I recommend these unique strategies to save and pay for your kids' college education.
Okay. That doesn't work. Next. Hold on. Sorry. There we go. Okay. Okay, so I know there's a lot of questions in here about 529 accounts. Here's the deal. You can use them to pay for private high school or middle school or elementary school. You can use them towards student loan payments after the fact, up to $10,000. You can even roll them over into a Roth IRA for your student under their name, up to $35,000, but you're limited on the annual amount. Or you can pay the taxes and the penalties on the gains. It's a 10% penalty, and then taxes on the gains, just the gains, not the whole amount. And you can move the you can move the 529 money into the life insurance so that it can grow compounded the rest of your life. Now, you might say, well, I don't want to pay those penalties and taxes. Well, guess what? if you pay cash for college and you have, 20 years or so left, okay, remember, if we pay cash for college and we use our 529 money, this interest is going to be your opportunity cost. It's going to cost you almost $400,000 to pay $135,000 out of your 529 account. So to spend $135,000 out of your 529 account, it's going to cost you over 20 years, it's going to cost you almost $400,000. So let's compare that with the life insurance strategy and look at how much money you can get back in these latter years. And chances are you're going to be able to have a lot more money than it's going to cost you in taxes and penalties. Okay. All right. Here's what some of our clients have to say about their experience.
My name is Diane. I first met Lance in 2018 at his education funding webinars on Facebook.
It was on social media, I was on Facebook, and I saw Lance and he had an advertisement. I usually don't click on them, but I decided to take a look. I got him in, I was a little skeptical because, there's so many ads on Facebook, social media, and you never really know what you're going to get. So I had the normal hesitations that I'm sure yourself or normal people would have.
I met Lance Morgan when I used a strategy for college, to pay for college and get that money back in retirement. And I was obsessed with, why did I not know this existed before now?
Lance taught my family and I to implement strategies to pay for college.
These are principles about paying for college that I was completely unaware of. I'm not a novice, but I'm not an expert, but I definitely learned some things that I didn't know, but I didn't even know I should know, to be honest with you.
I am somebody who has made a ton of financial mistakes, right? Like everything from not saving enough money, not saving enough money for college, not investing.
I've learned more about finances, investing and so forth from him, and a couple of phone calls that I have in the past 25 years from my financial advisor.
We had 2 1-hour-long Zoom calls, and I can honestly say that in those 2 hours, he taught me more about how I can apply this to my own life than Purdue has taught me in 2.5 years at this point.
He explains things so clear and so thorough with his examples, and the live videos and diagrams are really helpful to understand some pretty complicated topics that have at least been complicated in the way they were explained in years prior by other people.
He shared with us a lot of valuable information that one we cannot find readily available on the internet or anywhere else for that matter. We don't find many people telling us and sharing the kind of information Lance does.
Lance just puts them in ways that are just super easy to understand.
And I'm at the point where if somebody's got a good idea how to pay for this very expensive education better than what I know, I'm going to take a listen.
He breaks things down, explains things very well, really helps you to understand the ins and outs, shows visuals and so forth. So I'm always excited for my next call with him.
It's really communicating in a very effective way that you're able to retain the information. And Lance's style is fantastic. He basically makes the information so that everybody can really understand it. Not only his method of presenting it, but he's got really effective graphics that he talks to behind him that literally allow you to kind of connect the dots between the principles that he's saying and what makes them actually work, right? By combining both of them together. So I found it actually very enjoyable, but also extremely informative. When I listened to the basic principles that Lance was sharing, I said, well, the details of this must be really interesting and beneficial